Okay, right, we might get started. Hopefully, everybody's joined the webinar. Welcome to the ERF's webinar, the Talent Talks briefing that we've got this morning. We're going to be talking about selling advice, not CVs. My name's Mike McDonagh. I'm just going to start by saying thank you very much to Contracting Plus, who make these Talent Talk briefings possible for you to attend through their generous sponsorship. So Contracting Plus are key partners for many of our members involved in contract recruitment and sourcing. They offer quick compliance setup for new contractors, provide contract training and information sessions for your teams, and they've got in-depth insights and research on various sectors within the contracting industry in Ireland. So if you're working with contract talents, do make sure to give Amy, Jen, or Jimmy a shout. So thank you very much, Contracting Plus. So as I said, my name is Mike McDonagh. I'm the COO of Sigmar. I'm delighted to be here today and joined by this excellent panel. We're going to be chatting about selling advice and not CVs. So I'm going to introduce the three panel members and then we're going to get cracking. So first of all, Darragh O'Brien is the head of recruitment operations for FRS Recruitment. He's over 13 years experience. He's worked across exec search, IT, healthcare, and commercial sectors, and he's got experience with RPOs, MSPs, and retained recruitment searches. He's led the FRS healthcare team to the best healthcare agency at the 2023 ERF Awards, and the IT team to the 24 and 25 awards. So, Jesus, Darragh, you must be like paid well by different teams to do those award
Yeah,
pitches. So fair play, Darragh. Jean O'Donovan from Brightwater. She's 20 years experience in the recruitment industry and is a board director with Brightwater Group. She personally specializes in the recruitment of senior accountancy and finance professionals. Jean partners strategically with her clients, translating her professional services insight into solutions that anticipate challenges, add value, and deliver long-term outcomes. So thanks for joining us, Jean. And last but certainly not least, Yseult Rowe. She's a senior recruitment leader with 15 years experience building high performance teams and scaling specialist recruitment businesses. She's the director of commercial operations at Engage People, and she leads initiatives focused on profitability, operational excellence, learning development, recurring revenue, and long-term scalable growth. And she's playing a key role in their 3 to 10 year scaling strategy. Previously, she was a director at Ambition and accountability recruitment down in Australia, where she led specialist divisions and managed major client relationships, large-scale projects. And alongside leading divisional performance, she remains hands-on in business development and strategic account management. So welcome all three of you. Thank you very much for joining us. And I'm going to start off. So we've had the people on the webinar and watching on the live stream will be delighted to know we did do a little bit of preparation. Thank God, not like normal recruiters of our vintage. But I want to go through around all three of you and just, I suppose, start off by asking, what does the sort of idea around selling advice, not CVs, mean to you? Just in a nutshell, please. Jean, might start with you.
Yeah, no problem, Mike. I think the recruitment industry has 100% changed, and we are now talent advisors, recruitment partners to our clients. We are near full employment in the market, so we need to differentiate. And for me, it's really about working in tandem with your client, educating your client, being consistent with your following up, valuing your time, and really going to that consultative approach as opposed to the traditional transactional approach that has been going on in recruitment in prior years. So it really is, it's working together through collaboration.
Brilliant.
Mm.
Darragh, I stole your line on my LinkedIn post this morning. Sorry, but we were chatting about this the other day where you said like we've got to put the consultant back into the recruitment consultant job
Yeah.
title. So like what do you think about, the state of the industry and how we're doing that sort of selling advice, not sending CVs? What does it mean to you?
yeah, no, appreciate. Thanks, Mike. And it's if for me, it's key, and it's probably the thing I speak to my consultants about the most in terms of that. Consultant nature is it's we're the one, I suppose, industry that has consultant in our title that doesn't charge in advance. And I know I'll be hopefully touching on a bit of kind of retained search and my thoughts on that kind of later on. But it's I think the focus as an industry for for foreseeable needs to be putting a value on time, and within that kind of our relationships and how strong we can kind of make them close to almost on a personal level, as that is the best way to success. Obviously, touching on what Jean said, I totally agree. That's how we're going to differentiate ourselves kind of moving into the future. is having that sort of them key relationships in our key areas with our key clients. And taking that kind of a step further into the kind of I suppose kind of consultant end, and being a bit more than just sending CVs, just being that, because I think sadly we're entering an area where AI is going to be able to do that sort of recruitment. It's the simple CV posting. It will be the consultants and the agencies who do have, as I said, the kind of key relationships, or do go a little bit above and beyond with their clients, that I suppose differentiate themselves from the market, and will be the industry leaders kind of moving into the future.
Yeah. Yseult, just finally over to you in terms of like that statement, selling advice, not CVs. What does it kind of say to you in a nutshell?
Yeah, just to kind of follow on from what Darragh said there about placing value on our time as consultants, and I totally agree. We are in an unusual situation as one of the only professional service providers that hope to get paid at the end, but that has to go both ways. And the advice that I would always give around this to anyone who's starting out or in the first couple of years of their career is to play the long game. So selling advice and not CVs, to me, takes a bit of investment of your own time. And by that, I mean getting out to meet your clients face to face, really, really getting under the hood of the picture of who they're trying to hire rather than the resume. I recruited in accounting for a very long time, like Jean, and all management accountant job profiles start to look the same after a while. So when you get down and you meet a client and you build a relationship with them and you take the time, you invest the long haul up front to get to know them, their personality, what works in their team, who already works in the business, why didn't the last person work out? I think that's when you really start becoming a consultant and a partner. And instead of just saying yes to absolutely everything, you can say, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about this kind of profile? Or do you think maybe you're losing people every 2 years because of this blind spot that you have? And that takes a little bit of time. You got to put your shoes on and you got to go out and you got to meet them and you got to get to know them over coffee, and you'll probably know a lot about them and all the kids' names by the end of it. But I tell you, it makes it a lot more enjoyable in the long run. And it's just moving out of that transactional, fastest fingers first environment that I think makes the job a lot more rewarding as you grow up, they grow up. So your management accountants become the CFOs, and it makes life a lot easier, I find, if you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, very good. But like, is that easy for us, for seasoned recruiters, to say that, but like we're all leading teams, or we've all got teams of consultants, and there's new people coming into the industry who don't have the experience that we have, and it's really easy for us to say, I'll just build relationships, I'll just take the long-term view. But how can we, what advice can we give to those people on the webinar today or watching back, who are brand new or relatively new in their recruitment? Because it's hard, isn't it? Like, they're under pressure to make sales.
Yeah.
We're sort of saying, don't sell too early, take the long-term view, go out and meet your clients, build relationships. Like, Jean, what do guys with like 6 to 9 months experience or 6 to 12 months experience, what should they be thinking about this? Or how can they translate what we know in our bones into like a practical thing to do today?
Well, it brings you back to kind of, I suppose it's how you start off, isn't it? And how you manage your own expectations as a recruiter. If you're a new recruiter in the industry, what my advice would be is to set your own expectation. And that is your commitment to the client. Have a every conversation should have a full brief, a full meeting, get into the detail, get under the bonnet with the client. But if you start off saying, okay, I need to know X, Y, and Z before I can commit to this role, I need commitment of when interviews are going to be, what's the interview process going to look like? Why has this role come about? Because if you think about it, Mike, when we actually did start in recruitment, that was the expectation, So when we were about all those years ago, when there wasn't teams,
wasn't that long ago.
there wasn't teams, etc. That's how we were trained. And I think with COVID and everything being a little bit more accessible in terms of teams, like every standards may have dropped. But if you are a new recruiter, you need to value your time. You're going to have sales targets, behind you. And it's how do you achieve this? And one thing I would actually give a piece of advice to new recruiters is learn how to prioritize. Now your managers will help you with this, but learn how to, the clients that are giving you the time, that are buying into you, that are agreeing to your follow-ups, are the clients, that really will be prioritizing your time, that you should be working with. But it's about setting your own expectations and sticking to it and making sure that you do follow up.
Yeah. But I think the value your time thing is really important.
Yeah.
Again, we talked about that when we were preparing, because, you know, and again, we try and link it always back because there's so much stuff that we could talk about here and we could get into loads of things about recruitment. But back to this sort of like, we're not just sending out CVs, we're trying to build that consultative behavior, that sort of advisor, that relationship. Again, Darragh, how do you translate that kind of value your time? You know, I'm a new consultant, I'm in the industry, I'm looking to you for advice. How the hell do I do it like you do it? Or where do I start in that in sort of building those relationships? What decisions should I be taking today that will help me in 6 months' time?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, I think for me, credibility is key, and how you provide credibility obviously is great service. And kind of taking it right back to the beginning, it's just learning your craft. It's absorbing every day, be a sponge, learning. Like I actually I wrote down there just as Jean was talking, is we live in a very for me, you can see the clear difference between the consultants that were trained pre-COVID and kind of post-COVID, in terms of, just because clients obviously have remained somewhat remote in a lot of ways. So getting meetings is that much trickier. And I very much learned on the job when I was kind of out. But one thing I know my team has been really focusing on, that's been really successful in terms of gaining kind of that credibility and providing, as I said, more, as I said, as a service, was they have CVs before they go on to every meeting. So it was a great tip that they're actually booking the interviews on the calls. And it's been a huge win for us in terms of cutting time frames, in terms of feedback, in terms of actual process. Because look, we have time kills deals all over our offices, in terms of, and it's a repeated a recruitment phrase that they're sick of hearing from me, but it's the truth, and it's been a key. So from that kind of junior consultant, I would say, is just prepared, have that sort of, when you're going on a call, add value, even if it's just a small bit of value. It's just give them a bit of insights. You know, we've all these tools that are available to us now with AI and LinkedIn, and it's very easy to get information. So just bring it to your clients and you'll gain credibility, and that will stand to you 6, 12, 18 months down the line, as you said.
Yeah. Like Yseult, it's one of the things I say to new people that join Sigmar and have joined me over the years. Even after 3, 4 months, you know, a recruitment consultant in an agency will have so much more experience than the vast majority of the clients that we deal with, because they're not recruiting every day. So it's that kind of thing of, again, valuing your time, understanding where the value is that you offer. But it's hard, isn't it, to sort of translate that into like direct action, like what do I do today?
Yeah.
Anything else that you think is really important that new consultants should be thinking about, or people coming up through the industry?
Yeah, totally. And I would start by saying I really empathize with anyone who's in their first or second year of recruitment, because I found it tough. You know, like I joined recruitment many years ago, and it's okay now that I've a few years and tears under my belt. But like the first year or two, it just feels like there's always something that you haven't done. And that's how I would describe it. You leave the office every day and it's not like an accounts job where you know when something has been completed. It's never done. And that's a hard feeling in the first couple of years. There's so many different parts of the job, and even more now with AI and technology, that you should or could be doing. So I totally empathize with anyone who's feels like they're at the top of the roller coaster 6 months in, and I promise you it does get better. The main advice I give to someone in the first couple of years, or the first couple of months even, is consistency. So consistency will always beat motivation. And I don't think I've ever worked with anyone who was a million plus biller that got lucky, or were in a good market, or had a good desk, or had a better manager, or all the things we tell ourselves early on. They were really consistent. And that was in everything that they did. So if there was something, you might have KPIs or drivers or whatever you call them in your agency, but measures of success. And that could be speaking to a certain amount of candidates per day. It could be speaking to a certain amount of clients per day. It could be meeting a certain amount of clients per week. It could be submitting a certain amount of resumes, depending on what market you're in. Or it could be placement rates, like how many placements do you make per jobs on. But they were really consistent on those things, even when they didn't feel like it. So if it was Friday morning and Ireland had gotten into the World Cup and they'd had 10 pints the night before, they still got up and they did it. You know, they made themselves make those 3 calls or whatever it was that they did, even when they didn't feel like doing it. So the one thing I would say that's in your control today, right now, is do the hard thing. Do the thing you don't feel like doing, particularly the thing you don't feel like doing. Do it first thing. So if you're really afraid to speak to clients, but you know Mike's going to come to you at the end of the week and ask how many clients you spoke to, do it first thing. Just get it out of the way and have some organization around it. So coming head first into Monday morning and having no idea what your approach this week is going to be is extremely stressful. Taking an hour on a Friday and saying, right, well, I know that the agency that I work with already deals with this company in technology, but I see that we're not in touch with them on the finance side. They're on my list to call next week. And that's a nice warm call for a Monday morning. So it would be having a little bit of organization around your commitments and being really, only you can control what you do every day. That's not the market, doesn't control you. Your manager doesn't control you. The agency you work for doesn't control you. So there would be that. And then the other thing I would say, to both your and Darragh's point there on adding value when you are having conversations early on, is just really take an interest to your candidates. So for some reason, people find talking to candidates easier than they do clients early on. And I would say that talking to candidates should be, if you're working in a market that you don't really understand, and listen, that was me at the beginning. Someone said Big Four to me once early on in my recruitment career, hadn't a clue what the Big Four was, and I was recruiting and accounting. I would be learning from my candidates. I'd be saying, what do you do all day? And what's interesting about that? And why did you leave your last job? I would let them tell me. And then when I was on a call with a client, geez, it was as if I'd knew it all my life. So I would be leveraging the information the candidates were giving me to add something to the client. So just be paying attention all the time and taking an interest. And the other thing I would finish with, and if anyone from my team is on this call, they're going to be absolutely sick of this, because there's nothing I love more than an analogy. But if you wanted to go and get your bathroom done tomorrow and you contacted 5 bathroom or plumbing companies, and you had to tell them everything that you wanted to do, and they sat there and took notes and left, versus a plumber came in and said, well, Yseult, you know what, I've been doing this a long time, and actually that shower you want doesn't really work in this bathroom because of the rust or whatever. Or they came and they advised, they listened before they sold back to you on what you thought you wanted. You're probably going to go with that person, because they're probably going to make you feel like they're driving, they're taking charge, they're in control of an area that you don't really understand. And that would be the mindset I would take into job briefs as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Jean, the kind of the whole thing around well, candidates definitely. I was going to ask before Yseult stole my thunder there. If that's all right, Yseult. But no, like how, like, you know, again, we're back to this. I want to keep coming back to the title of the webinar, because, like I said, we can go off in all directions, but I think we're giving some really good advice here. How do you build that ability to develop relationships and to offer that advice? I mean, we're talking particularly to clients here, aren't we? Because you know, they are the ones that pay us. Like, it's, you know, how does a new consultant or even an experienced consultant continue to sort of like come back to, how am I current with my advice? How do I, you know, the insight that I give, how do I make sure that that's relevant and current to the market I'm working in?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, to be fair, we've loads of tools to do that nowadays, you know, so absolutely that advice is there. But I will bring that back to candidates, because if you are advising your clients, your candidates are as important. And you are right, Mike. A lot of the time we focus on kind of pleasing the client and what needs to be done for the client. Everything that you apply to a client in terms of commitment, follow up, when you're going to speak to somebody, that also needs to be done with candidates as well. Just even bringing it back to kind of, I suppose, how we manage our candidates. There's a lot in AI there at the moment, but AI cannot know what your candidate's key motivator is, why they want to move a role, what's going on in their industry, what's going on in their company, how like candidates will tell you loads of information. They like to talk about themselves, they like to talk about their departments, they like to talk about their employers that they're working for. So you could probably get a lot more information from your candidate once you build up a rapport with them, and that will in turn, you know, I suppose, provide you with information, that your market insights that you can then provide onto your client, or onto your client. So it's about really knowing your candidates very well, following up with them, having marketing commitment. And then I would say, like on the, I suppose on the overall side, kind of we kind of very much operate in Brightwater, that kind of inch wide, miles deep type recruitment, very much being specialists in your area. So, go to industry events, get out there, know what's going on. And then you have, obviously, you've got your market insights, you've got LinkedIn, you've got competitor analysis, you've got hiring trends. All of these are available at the touch of a button. So the key thing is to make sure to prepare on both sides. And before you would go on any call, I would say to any consultants, new or old, it's not 5 minutes looking at the website before. If you have your preparation and you come across as that market specialist, you'll do a lot better. But you do need to keep it is not all about the client. It is very much knowing your candidates as well.
Yeah.
It can be a world of information.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I would always say to guys working for me,
Yeah.
if you've not spoken to, and I love your point, Yseult, about consistency. I think that's absolutely key for success in this industry. But if you've not spoken to, I don't know, 5, 10 candidates in your market today,
Yep.
your information is out of date, isn't it? But the
Yep.
power that you can give to a client, Darragh, when they're giving you an instruction, they're saying, right, Darragh, we want you to look at this vacancy for us. And you can say, well, if you can turn around and say, well, I've spoken to 50 candidates in this market in the last week, and this is what they're telling me. So that's how I can give you that advice. You're not quite saying it like this, but you're almost like, how many candidates in the markets have you spoken to, Mr. Client? Okay, none. Right. So it's me. I do know what I'm talking about here. And like you say, we're trying to put ourselves in that advisor position, but we do need to also, to a certain degree, in a professional way, puff out our chest a bit and say, look, we know what our market is telling us. And if we think you're right, Mr. Client, fine. But if you're off the mark a little bit, it's my job to tell you so that we can look for the right kind of skills at the right salary, with the right experience, etc., etc.
Yeah, I wonder, and it comes back to, I'm probably answering the question you asked before with this as well, but it kind of comes back to that too, because obviously it's easy for us to kind of say with our years of experience, because we do, like, I think you naturally, when you're just in the market and you're a specialist in your area and you live it, you become that expert and so when you are that 6 to 9 month recruiter, and it's back, I think, to Yseult, I think Jean, both of you kind of said it about speaking to your candidates and being that, because it's a bit of fake it till you make it in the beginning, because you can just almost repeat, because if a candidate tells you, and the candidates love talking about themselves, as we all well know, once they repeat some information, you can say, hey, just tell me about, geez, I haven't seen that technology before, tell me a bit about that big thing. You repeat that then to the client. The client's like, oh, Darragh's very credible, because he knows kind of something kind of beyond, let's say, what a recruitment person should know.
Yeah, but you bothered to ask, Darragh. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think, consultants that are not making it, they're not bothering to ask. And we have to be nosy. We have to be inquisitive. If you want to use a fancy word, inquisitive, normal word, nosy. Like, we have to ask those questions, don't we? Because otherwise, how do we gather that information and then have the confidence to pass it on to our clients? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And and as I said, it's as you said, curiosity, I think, is one of the best skills to have as a recruiter. Almost like, why is that, and why is A related to B and it equals C here in this kind of instance? And when you kind of start putting that, let's say, the puzzle together, that's when a new recruiter becomes a good recruiter, and a good recruiter becomes a great recruiter, because they can kind of start spotting the trends. And when they go out to, like, I think as you're saying, we did when we were doing a bit of prep for this, and I'm sorry if I'm stealing someone's thunder here, but it was a great point. It was kind of burned in my head of, like, we need to learn to say no. We need to learn to be able to. And when you get to that level with a client where you can push back and kind of say, Mr. Client, I don't believe that. I don't believe, or I know I've had a few instances over the years where a client kind of came to me, and I'd sent maybe 5 or 6 CVs for a position, and I'm expecting 5 or 6 interviews, and they come back, I'll interview them too. And I'm like, listen, you could do interview them too, but I'm telling you, this guy over here is your guy. Like, this guy, honestly, I'd hang my hat on. And they interviewed him and he got the job. And instantly, that's a client that's worked with me throughout my 14-year recruitment career. Do you know that way? Pretty much, because so when you get to that point, but it's willing to kind of be able to push back, be able to say no, is so key to furthering your relationship with client, candidates, agency. It doesn't matter. Just that ability to kind of push back, I think, is something that will stand you throughout your career, become a lot more credible.
Well, I think back to
The-
like somebody said it, and we were chatting the other day, value your time, if, whether you're, 5 months or 5 years or 15 years experience in the industry, we can all kind of spin our wheels doing stuff that isn't really, useful, so we can whack out CVs, but if we're not speaking to the client, we're not meeting them in person, it's not going to work. Like sending CVs isn't being busy in recruitment, is it?
Mm.
It's,
Yeah.
getting interviews is getting sales, having good conversations with your client. But like
like
valuing your time and saying no.
information. Yeah, if you just say, Mike, just even to make a point there, what you're saying is like
Yeah,
information will give you confidence. Like
yeah,
if you are, especially if you're new, like people love to talk. So if you can gather that information, that will build your confidence, which will build your confidence with the client. So exactly what you're saying there, it's really you have to get into, doesn't need to, you don't like I recruit an accountant. I can't prepare a set of accounts. And like that's fine, obviously. But kind of the buzzwords and stuff. So you don't
Mm.
need to know how to do the job, so it's just about kind of knowing what's current in the industry. So
yeah,
I think, information builds confidence.
yeah,
I don't think that
Yeah.
receiving CVs or information is the problem that our clients like. Clients need a problem solved of a
Hmm.
great person who matches their culture and is going to stay and grow with their business. I don't get the sense that a lot of our clients, unless you're recruiting in some really, really niche industry, I don't think getting CVs or receiving CVs, whether it's from their direct advert or other agencies, is an issue for clients. It's knowing what to do next. So I
Yeah.
think if you're putting yourself in that role of being the problem solver, the person that the client knows, trusts, likes, enjoys dealing with, and you can distill that information and say, well, out of the 150 people, and it will in some markets, some especially people who
Mm.
are more who are newer in their career, you will be recruiting in one of those functions where you might get 150 resumes. That's not like getting CVs or selling CVs is not an issue for clients. It's knowing, who are the three people I should
Yeah.
meet and
Who'd
the
you
one person
pick?
I should
Yeah.
hire. Like
Mm.
that's where we come in as the broker. We are the broker of them ringing you in 2 years and saying, geez, that was brilliant, that person that you hired. And I know I said I wanted this system, but actually they've turned out great in so many other ways. That's the skill, I think.
yeah. Back to the relationships piece, guys. You know, Darragh, I think you said it, like post-COVID, we have slipped into this sort of world of like default to Teams, default
Yeah.
to email. I think there's misnomers put out there about, certain generations only want to communicate through certain means, which I think is nonsense. But anyway, I think it's too broad a brush to sort of, paint everybody with. But how can we support people to sort of, to think about, it needs to be phone, not email. It needs to be in person, not through Teams, if possible. I appreciate it's not always possible, but like our defaults need, because building that relationship, being able to give that advice that Yseult's talked about there, being able to push back and say no. I think somebody just mentioned in the comment there about commitment is key from both parties. Like, well, if the client commits to meet with you, that's the first green flag that you've got. If the
Mm.
client says, I don't want to meet with you, that's the first red flag to go, is this the best use of my time today? So how are we supporting consultants to sort of get to that point where their default is phone if possible, in person if possible? It's better to do it like that than using these other means of communication. Anybody want to take that?
I suppose I think it's
Right.
about kind of setting, yeah, sorry, like I mean, you have to set your own kind of targets and parameters for consultants. And you are right, Mike, you're not going to get to meet every single client. So it's not like every single job you have on. Like if you say to a consultant, okay, if you have 3 jobs on, if you can get to meet with, sorry, 5 jobs on, get to meet with three of those clients, it's kind of maybe about kind of setting bite-sized chunks. But I bring it back to if a client says, no, I won't meet you, why? We really
Yeah,
want to get this filled. It's about asking those probing questions. I find a very powerful one can be like, I mean, how are you coping without this individual? When is this person going? How much is this costing you? If you can ask some probing questions on the call, if you're having difficulty, that can often help secure the meeting. And if you can't, then do your Teams call, and maybe next time you will get to meet that client. If you can't meet them the first instance, it's about not giving up and trying going back again.
yeah,
So I would say it's about, again, is having your information and I suppose managing expectations. You won't get to meet everyone, but you won't get to meet anyone if you don't ask.
yeah,
So it's about
yeah.
asking.
But Isol, I think you said it is
Mm,
like do the hard thing,
yeah.
Yeah.
and the hard
Well,
thing is asking for a meeting, isn't it? Like it's going,
Yeah.
I need to come and see you in order to have a better chance of filling this job.
Yeah, and
You
having a
know,
few lines up your sleeve, I think, is good. There, Jean, give a couple examples there. I think when you're newer, having a few lines up your sleeve. One for me would be, you wouldn't expect me to send candidates that I hadn't met, and they don't expect me to
Yeah.
send them to a client that I haven't met. Like it's probably
Yeah.
it's a bit like being a
Powerful.
matchmaker. It'd be
Yeah.
very, very hard for me to match up the right candidate for you that will still be there in 3 years, Mr. Client, if I haven't been to your office and we haven't met each other. So like just a few little lines like that, I think are good to have up your sleeve in that instance.
Sorry,
And
sorry.
also sometimes if someone is really, really, really resisting, and all the billing managers now are going to hate me, but if someone is really resisting meeting you or signing your terms or answering your phone call, for me at this stage, they'd probably be going further down my list of priorities.
Agreed.
If they won't come back to me, if they can't commit, if they won't interview, if they won't meet me, no, that you need to have the luxury of having plenty of work on
Yeah.
to say this,
Yeah.
but
But
that's
I think
telling you something, I think.
yeah, but I think that there's something there. It's again, we've got to value our time. And what we're trying to do here with the ERF, like anything that we're trying to do through the Employment Recruitment Federation, is to try and raise standards. You know, we are all passionate about what we do here, and we're trying to say, look, there is a way to do recruitment, and then there's the really, really good way to do recruitment. And you know, there's that's what we're sort of talking about here is the best way to do this for everybody's sake as well, not just recruitment consultants, but also for the clients as well, because we know the outcomes are going to be better if these kind of things are more sort of routine or more habit. What do you think, Darren, in terms of like face-to-face meetings, getting out
Yeah,
of
sorry,
email?
I'm some technical gremlins, so it's so typical this morning, all mornings. But quite a powerful one because I look a lot of them. What I would have said is Gene and Yseult kind of covered, but one that we use, especially if the client is a bit resistant, because they're work from home and they're only in the office 2 days a week. When they're in there, they don't have a half an hour to spend. I typically, especially if there's prior placements there, I'll just organize a candidate meeting and just simply say, I'm going to be on site anyway, so would you pop down for, and usually if you say pop down for 5 minutes, that leads to half an hour, 45 minutes, and then you kind of get, and it's been a very powerful one for us over the years to, especially post COVID. And I do have, I think one of you guys said it about that I do have sympathy. I think it was Yseult, it was yourself. So sympathy for consultants now, because I do remember pre-COVID, it was much easier to get meetings. Like it was a very much like it was a more accepted kind of thing for clients to do. Whereas now at the minute, it does seem like their time in the office is precious, especially if there's some form of hybrid. But I fully agree that we have to put a value on our time. But I do think that if we don't, if we haven't seen the environment or we haven't seen, it's very hard when it comes to, like, it's fine to set up interviews and find candidates, but when it comes to crunch closing and and counter offers are in play and everything of that ilk, it's the most important thing in the world that you're able to sell that environment, because it might be something that you spot that they mentioned that, like, oh, I don't have a gym on site. Oh, I on the way in I saw the gym on site, or
Yeah.
I didn't see that they've paid lunches, everything. Oh, well, you're going to save yourself 15 quid a day, and over the course of the year that adds up, to be a couple of grand that you got counter offered. So it's just such small things can make such a difference by being on site. So
Absolutely.
we agree.
Just before we've got a couple of questions that have come in, and we'll get onto those. And I'm just to shout out to anybody else who wants to fire a question in, either in the chat or there is a Q&A function there as well. So one thing, Darragh, that we spoke about in preparation, and I think we're all probably doing this a little bit more now, is retainers.
Yes.
And we felt that this was a sort of a signal that, we really were getting to that sort of advisor, that consultant position, rather than fastest finger first in competition with 5 agencies, and, none of us get paid, or maybe 1 out of 5. What's, again, just thoughts on how retainers plays into this whole, selling advice, not CVs piece, Darragh, and the rest
Yeah,
of
well,
you as well.
I think you mentioned, Mike, when we brought this up, it was like us as an industry, I think as a whole, need to like lift the floor and kind of make this as acceptable. And I 100% agree. I think sometimes we go out to clients, especially established clients who've been maybe in the Irish market for 15, 20 years, and I've dealt with many recruitment agencies. You kind of mention this concept to them and it's like you have 3 heads. It's like, what are you talking about paid up front, but it's to the point that was made already. It's like, if you were a consultant in any other industry, you would be getting paid in advance, or at least some of the fee. So I think the first thing as a whole is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask that key question, because like the worst thing they can say is no. Like there's nothing more than that. But obviously, not every client will be suitable for it. Totally get that. But when you identify key triggers within a client, whether they're like a typical one there, I think it was mentioned earlier about that if a client kind of starts to kind of say waste your time a little bit, say you've sent a lot of CVs, it's going in black holes, and then they come back and engage, and all of a sudden it's really urgent. At that point, I'd be like, listen, Mr. Client, I really want to work with you on this, but half the fee needs to be paid, and a third of the fee needs to be paid in advance before we engage on this. Or if it's where it's traditionally obviously used is more on that exec search end, in that senior end. But it comes down to there's no real role exempt from this. It's just knowing when to push or pull with a client, know when it's applicable, and just don't be afraid to ask, because sometimes it's like, we clam up a little bit of like, asking that difficult question, but the worst thing they can say is no, and you end up in a contingency situation which you were kind of in anyway. So there's no really but what tends to happen for us when we've a few of them ongoing at the moment is the client love it, because the engagement is so high. We're invested. The pressure,
better for everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's you get as well to remember, I think traditionally you always associate retained with executive search, and we've seen it more and more come into contingency. You could even rephrase it, like retained can sometimes scare a client off, but if we kind of talk about an engagement fee, and that could even be just, if your fee is going to be 12k overall, maybe 3k up front, that gives you buy-in. You don't always need to do a third. It's about challenging it's about kind of, I suppose, challenging the client. And Darragh's absolutely right. You get such engagement, but also you can do more advertising. You could do a dual branded advertising campaign with a client, which works for you and works for them. Doesn't work in every situation, but it's certainly worth asking. But I would say, if you are pitching that, then if you come across as credible and really know your market and know what you're talking about, and really give confidence to the client that you are going to fill this role. And that's one thing I would say: make sure it's roles that you can fill. When you are pitching this service, it can be great. And there you go. You go into your month, you have 3-4k up front. You're not starting on zero. So it gives you that confidence. So I think it's about kind of reframing how we look at things.
I would say two things on it. So one, I've spent most of my recruitment life in Australia, where retainers weren't. I think sometimes there's this myth where people think, oh, well, it's different in every country. It's not. The Australian recruitment market is mostly made up of Irish and English recruiters. I worked for years contingently against other agencies. It was a similar conversation to the one we're having now years ago, where lots of recruitment leaders said, look, we're just going to raise the floor on this. And it wasn't normal until it was, even to the point where I have a friend who's a CPO of an Irish tech company who was working with an agency in Australia, and she voice noted me and she said, can you believe this? They're asking me to pay them up front. I never heard of this before in my life. Is it a scam? I was like, no, that's just a retainer. So it's obviously new to the Irish market, and I totally get that. But the more that we talk about it and the more that we normalize it, the more that we are likely to move into a place in 2 or 3 years where it's more common, and that's down to us. And the second thing I would say about it is, again, like anything when you're early on, make sure you're really comfortable and you have your lines around this. So for me, even if it was a junior role, and as Jean says, it was a 12k fee, or even if it was an 8k fee, I might be asking for 1,000 up front. And my language around that would be like, your engagement goes up, my engagement goes up. So I would be highly, highly committed and engaged, and you will be my number one priority. I will make this problem go away from you with a small, but I need a little bit of engagement from you. And sometimes they're looking for a discount. Let's say your fees are 20% and they say, oh, well, we can really only do 18 or 17. That's where I would start. I wouldn't be worried about that. That's not a hurdle. That's the beginning of a negotiation for me. So I'd be saying, okay, cool. If your fee goes down, your engagement must go up. Something must balance for me. So if your engagement goes up and you're willing to commit to, say, 1,000, 2,000, whatever payment up front, I can make it 17%, but I can't do 17% and be ringing you in 2 months chasing feedback on resumes that I sent. So we must work together, me and you, versus this problem that we're trying to solve of you're a new employee. I would be really comfortable in my language around that with clients. And I don't think you need 15 years of experience for that. I think you just need to back yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah, a bit of
agreed.
confidence.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how you did things in Australia, Yseult, but if you say, I'm going to make this problem go away, it can sound a bit sinister, you know, so
It's a wild world
I
out
think
there.
it's a
We got
good
no
yeah, I
line.
know.
GDPR, we
Like,
got nothing.
we're only going to hire somebody for them. We're not going to like, you know, we're not hitmen. Anyway, sorry, I'm
My,
only joking. But
We have
I
a
think
very
you're right.
threatening way of communicating.
Yeah,
her,
yeah,
her,
yeah.
her name in Australia was Yseult Soprano. We just
Exactly, that's
On
it.
death
Yeah, we
row,
didn't
yeah.
know what we've got. Yeah, we need to talk to Paul. But but I think the big thing we're talking about there, guys, and somebody mentioned it in the chat, it's about that commitment piece, isn't it? It's commitment to us. You know, if somebody says they're going to go exclusive with you, well, they may as well retain you. And if part payments, if it's, you know, just something that secures your time. Again, we've talked about valuing your time, so important, and having that confidence to sort of give that advice. What I'm going to do, I'm going to run on to a couple of questions that are in the Q&A. And again, I just encourage anybody else, if you've got a question, to fire it in there. So the first one from Michael Gorman, thank you for this, Michael. So it's saying, basically, recruiters in early days are sometimes worried about asking clients and candidates questions in case they look foolish or they hurt their credibility. So what advice would you have for them? So again, we're talking about those consultants who are starting off their careers.
I don't want to say that. I actually think it because we all had that same
Yeah,
fear
of course.
in the beginning. You know, you think, Jesus, what if I say the wrong thing? But what we don't realize is because our industry is still quite big, and especially because the market's still doing quite well, there's even international recruiters. So what ends up kind of happening, I found, I actually got told this firsthand by a client recently enough, is if you ring a client and let's say you make a mistake, or you're in a meeting and you make a mistake, the problem is the chances are they're probably having 10 more meetings that day. They've probably forgotten about you by the third meeting. So it's a learn by doing exercise. And look, we've all been in a meeting where we've said the wrong thing, or you know what I mean? Or maybe I take that back. I wouldn't have said it that way. But the thing is, the client, chances are they didn't even realize it in the moment or have forgotten about it. So the more meetings you do, the less chance of it happening, the more exposure you give yourself to the kind of pressure situations of that meeting, or the client call, or whatever that might be. So I just say to my crew, do it. Just do it and fail. And it's fine to fail as long as you pick stuff and you learn from it and go again. But I think it's just throwing yourself in is the biggest differentiator for me in the beginning.
You learn from your mistakes in recruitment. It's how you build. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. The other thing as well is it's all right to say you don't know something.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
God's sake, like
yeah. You're
we're
not.
not bloody robots. Like we're
Yeah.
not, you know, we're not all powerful bit. Well, Gene is, but you
I
know,
don't know about that.
you know, but like, isn't that right? You sort of like, I
Yeah.
think sometimes sort of turning around to a candidate or a client and going,
Yeah.
look, I'm really sorry,
What does
but
that mean?
can
Yeah.
you just explain what that means? Because I've never heard that statement before, you know?
I think as well, there's a real fine line between, you know, so you absolutely don't want to go into a meeting and say, look, I haven't a clue here and haven't done my
Yeah.
research. But I actually think it's sometimes worse to go off on a spiel about something you don't know about, or often in technical industries, people will start using jargon. And I think it's okay to say, sorry, can you clarify, what do you mean by that acronym you just use? That's new to me. And people, I think people kind of like that when you admit you don't know something.
Yeah. Or, you know, I always say it's great to ask for somebody for advice, not help, you know. So can you give me some advice? Can you just tell me what are you talking about there? Or if you're talking to a candidate who is talking in a lot of jargon, I always say, look, imagine I'm a HR person. Maybe I don't know, you know, some of the technical
That's
terminology
it,
in
yeah.
that industry. How would you explain it to somebody who's in a more generalist position? You know, and you don't have to tell them that you don't know what that means. You're just saying, can you explain it to a HR person?
That was my old trick as well, Mike.
There we go. We must have all
Pretend
trained
I'm
in the
in
same
HR.
place. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question, Michael. Another good question from Emma Fenton. So, as experts in the industry as you guys are, how do you balance your time between client-facing, sort of out of meetings, business development calls, etc., and candidate sourcing? Do you dedicate certain days, or split the time in the day, or how do you do that?
I think obviously the thing is, it's like the cart following the horse, isn't it? You need to go out and you need to meet your clients in order to come back and do the sourcing. So what I would say is I'm not a big fan of allocating it to specific days. And this is actually one point I did want to make earlier on. We're obviously, a lot of recruitment companies are working in hybrid models at the moment, as are our clients. Sometimes your clients' days won't always match up to your days. So I think as consultants, we probably need to be kind of a little bit more flexible in terms of our time. So like if your office days are Monday, Tuesday, and a client can meet you Wednesday, Thursday, I would encourage people to make the time to do that and kind of work a little bit outside of your own schedule around the client's schedule. But what I would say is, I mean, like again, you can like a Friday is obviously often a really good day, I find, kind of for a sourcing day, even a Monday. But I would say have flexibility around it, ensure that you're doing the meetings, and then you will come back, but don't overbook yourself. Like, I mean, if you're doing kind of 3 or 4 meetings a week off site, that's probably quite a bit, kind of if you're going to and from, then you need time at your desk. But I think if you can be flexible and work with your clients and candidates, I think you'll find it a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yseult?
So I actually don't run a desk and engage people, but when I'm looking at that question, I'm thinking, and my heart always goes out to the billing managers, which I've always said is the toughest gig in the agency if you're managing a team and managing your clients. When I was at the point in my career, which I think this question is asking, where I had quite a bit of experience, which meant I had more clients and more roles coming to me, and I was learning to prioritize those. I was really, really, really strict. I agree with Jean. I wasn't too prescriptive on, well, on a Monday I do BD or on a Wednesday, but I would have a certain amount of non-negotiables that I had to get through during the day, because otherwise, if you attach your kind of emotions or how you feel about yourself in recruitment to your billing month, you can feel like the best person in the world or the worst person in the world. And I would rather personally attach it to what I'm in control of, which is what I do every day. So I was quite rigid, to be honest with you, around so I would like to be in touch with hot clients, warm clients, and cold clients on a certain amount every day. Candidates that had applied to roles directly, that would always be my first thing that I would do in the morning, and getting out to meet clients face to face. Now, the longer you do the job, the client meetings actually become the best part of the job. So it's no longer you're going sweating to some business you'd never been before. It starts to become like a lunch and maybe a couple of beers over lunch or something like that. That bit actually becomes good crack. But I was really, really regimented in, there were certain markers that I needed to hit every day to know that I had done my best no matter what was going on. And that helped me manage my mindset long term in recruitment, because you know yourselves, you could do a 50K month or a 5K month. And it was really important to me to know that I was in control of the things that I could control when I was busier.
Yeah, very good. Darragh, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, it's very similar. I am probably similar situation to Yseult, where I'm not as recruiting as heavily anymore. I do a bit overseas, but I always kind of had a minimum from a strictly business development point of view. Always had a kind of a minimum range I would always do, because it doesn't matter if you've 100 roles or no roles. Business development, it has to be done, because you could have 100 roles, but you could still find that one role that's a guaranteed fee that's better than 100 roles. So it was always in my mindset, but we kind of have for each desk, we have kind of a minimum amount of roles that we kind of think are. I try take as much intangibility out of recruitment and keep it stats based as I possibly can. So we know by our ratios, if we have X amount of roles, that yields X amount of placements stereotypically for us. Now, obviously, the quality of roles has to come into that, and how, but what we would call, like, we don't even count the ones that say we don't trust or are very competitive. But so, for example, if someone has 30 odd roles and 20 of them are inherently placeable, their BD levels are going to be very much minimal, but it still stays at that minimum standard. Whereas if someone has only 5 roles of desk, now maybe 2 or 3 of them are very placeable, they need to increase their output on business development, meetings, everything like that. So it's as to touch on what Jean said there, you're very much still on on the tools. You still prioritize your meetings even if you are very busy, because at the end of the day, that will enhance relationships. It will bring you more money into the bank. But I do think it's for me, it was always a push and pull scenario of trying to find that balance. And sometimes I did successfully and sometimes I didn't, but that's okay too, and it's I always try to use sounding boards in that regard when I'm particularly busy, to kind of find if I'm hitting the right levels.
Yeah, I think just to wrap up this question, I think
Yeah.
I'd agree with what you guys are saying. I think you've got to find your own rhythm,
Yeah.
Emma, and I think you've whatever works for you. Some people are very sort of strict with their time. Other people, I was always a bit more, sort of like go by my feeling of when I was going to do something. But I think it was always I made sure I would do business development every single week, probably every day, and I'd also do candidate sourcing every single day because again, that sort of sense of I need to be current in both elements of the job to be able to sell to both elements of our job because obviously we're selling to candidates and we're selling to clients. So trying to keep that balance going. I would always put a premium on face-to-face meetings. I think they're way more important than anything else that we do from a client business development point of view. I would take one client meeting over 10 business development calls any day of the week.
Yeah.
So I think it's about prioritizing again, but it's also working out what's that chemistry that you need in your own desk or your own business, and ask advice from more experienced consultants or your managers in your business. Just going to quickly move on. A couple of other questions. Erica, how can we as an agency stand out in an oversaturated field? So quick answer on that, guys. Jean?
Just do what you say you're going to do, making it very simple. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
follow up, do what you say you're going to do, and know your market, and become a specialist, would my advice.
yeah,
Mhm.
right. Yseult?
I will quote your great leader, Siobhan Kinsella, in that Ireland actually isn't an oversaturated recruitment market. I believe I might have this number wrong, but there's only something like 700 recruitment agencies in Ireland. But again, with what Jean's saying is do what you say you're going to do. You'd be amazed how simple
Yeah,
that is. And if you're not going to do what you say you're going to do, let them know. So if you said
Yeah,
you're going to have 3 resumes by Friday at 12 o'clock, and for
absolutely.
any reason
Follow up.
that's not going to happen, give them a ring on Wednesday or Thursday and say, I'm just letting you know I'm not going to hit my own deadline for X reason and I'll be back to you on Monday. Just over communicate. I think
Yeah,
it's really,
brilliant.
really simple, but lots of people don't do it.
yeah.
Very good. Darragh?
Yeah, I would be in a situation where, especially if it's a very competitive environment, I would give 48, maybe 72 hours, give it your best shot, kind of set a time frame in your head, see how that they engage with you. If it's a relationship, then you can build on, but also then don't be afraid, especially if you're busy, have a busy desk, to move on quickly, because you can get caught in, have that in your head in your pipeline of, oh, I'm just keep chasing, keep sending more CVs, and it goes into black holes. And we know a bad week becomes a bad month, becomes a bad quarter pretty quickly. So what I would say is be ruthless with your time. Make sure that if after a certain period of time, especially in a competitive kind of style, it's you're not getting the feedback, you're not getting the return, move on. That's
Yeah, very good. Somebody here is asking for clarification why an on-site meeting is so important. And they're kind of saying, look, obviously people are remote, people are based all over the country. I'll give you my own opinion on that. I just think the chemistry that you make with somebody when you're in person, face to face, is so much better. I think there's also an element of the commitment. So if somebody is prepared, but also if you are prepared to go out of your way to go and visit a client on their site, and it might be awkward for you to get there, I think that demonstrates your professionalism and your commitment to that relationship and to filling that job or to, creating that relationship. So I do think that there's an element of a couple of things. I also do recognize in this world that it's so easy to do a Teams meeting. So what commitment are we looking for there when it's so easy to do a Teams meeting? Now, having said that, there are situations where, if you're based in Donegal and the client's based in Dublin, how practical is it? It's not. But I think it is the preference, I think, if you are looking to establish a relationship. Any other thoughts on that, guys?
I think you've summed it up, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, you can absolutely do your Teams call if you are kind of based, I suppose, out of Dublin. Yeah, but then maybe have a day a month or something that you're coming up, or 1 or 2 days, and not just put aside time, because face to face is invaluable. But a Teams call is it's a good second option. It's better than a phone call if you're
Mm.
eyeballing people, is what I would say. Even when you've got the CV sent and you're doing your shortlisting calls, as opposed to over the phone. Again, try and see people face to face. I think you can read people better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we haven't actually gone down the line and engaged people of differentiating when we're looking at client
Mm,
meetings, whether they're in real life
mm.
or on Teams. And I don't think we will. But if it were me, I mean, yeah, you just it's like going on a date, right? Like you need to meet the person. If you're in this for the long haul and you intend to be in the area that you recruit in, whatever that may be, for the long term, getting to know your clients on in person is just like, it's doing the hard thing up front to cut down a lot of problems down the line. So you can't beat an in-person meeting in an area of your life, I think.
Yeah. Darragh, finish it
Yeah,
off.
I couldn't add anything more than said. All I would say is, look, just proof is in the pudding. Like when I look back
Yeah.
at my 14-year recruitment career, and I look at the clients who paid my wedding, my car, my it's all clients who I meet semi to very, very regularly. They're not clients who, let's say, are just on the other end of the phone. I've placed with a few of them over the years, but they're few and far between. It's if I look back over that sample size, it's they're the ones, the highest billing clients are always the ones that have been met and have a strong relationship with.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up there, guys. I think we're kind of pretty much up at the time, but thank you so much to Jean, Yseult, and Darragh for providing brilliant advice and insight into how we can become, or enhance that sort of advisor piece rather than just whacking out CVs. I also just want to say thanks again to the team at Contracting Plus. If you're working with professional contractors, make sure you're chatting to them about how they can support you and have them on your partner list for umbrella and limited companies. So, final thing. Yeah, predictions on tonight's match, guys, quickly. Jean, we're playing Czechia, by the way.
I know. 2-1, 2-1. I've been told 2-1.
So for the men's game, Yseult. Men's game, sorry.
The men play football. Yeah, oh God, I don't know. I just hope Troy Parrott scores, because like I was down walking past his mother's house yesterday and the place is on wheels in Dublin 1. So just hope Troy scores. That's what I'll say.
Brilliant. Darragh?
Well, 1-1 extra time, Nathan Collins header, last minute to win it.
There's a man who knows what he's talking about.
Come
Yeah.
on. Anyway,
Yeah.
right. Well, listen, good luck to the boys in green tonight. Thanks very much, guys. And
Thanks.